calm is the cradle of power. And I try and bring myself back to that when I can feel myself getting a little adrenalized or a little aerated about something that's going on, or I can feel other people's anxiety, and again being very clear in my own mind about what of that I can absorb and what I can't, and that I need to be calm in myself in order to be able to best help and support the people that I am there to work with, whether it's peers and colleagues, whether it's other people in the firm, or as you say, whether it's with clients, and to be very clear with them about what I'm able to do and when I'm able to do it.
Thank you so much, Katherine, for joining me here on this podcast. I think everyone's going to find we have an exceptional person, and she sent me a wonderful bio, but I'm actually going to read out the bio that she sent me, which is, I think, much more applicable, which says, Katherine does things and she's been doing them for decades now, so people think she knows what she's doing. She's been promoted a few times because she refuses to leave, so she keeps getting stuff shuffled around. Right now, she's in a global role. So tell us about your global role.
Okay, so my global role is leading our firm's government and infrastructure advisory practice across all the countries in which my firm operates. So we have practitioners in 84 countries around the world, and it's my job to make sure that for the governments that we serve in those countries, they are getting exactly from our firm what they need, and that we are making sure they have access to the very best people, the very best insights, and everything that they need in order to deliver the right outcomes for the citizens of those countries. And it's work that I care very deeply about, and it's a role that I feel very honoured and very privileged to have.
That is. And so a person that is literally on a global scale, how do you keep some personal boundaries? How do you keep a time clock that doesn't lead you to a 24-hour burnout cycle all day, every day? How do you do that?
It's a good question. Yeah, it's a great question. I try and be fairly firm in my boundaries. When I haven't been, I find myself getting into those cycles where you sit in meetings, and like in every meeting that you're in, you think, oh my goodness, when did everyone get so dim, and when did everyone get so annoying? And then when it happens meeting after meeting, you think, maybe it's not everyone else. Maybe I am the common denominator here. So I've, having made the mistake of not being firm about my boundaries and making myself available for all the things all the time, I know that in order to show up as the best version of me, I need to be pretty clear about when I can and when I can't be available. And when people need me, I'm absolutely there, of course. But as a rule, I try and be completely off the tools from close of play Friday to Sunday night. I'll always have a quick sneaky peek at what's happened over the weekend on Sunday night, just so that if there's a towering inferno somewhere in the practice, I know about it before the alarm goes on Monday morning. But that's something that I try and abide by. And I also try not to have night after night after night of really late nights either. And as you say, given that I need to work almost on a 24/7 cycle, there will be some days when I will start really early, and there will be other nights when I work quite late. But I try not to back up too many of those consecutively, and so have a little bit of order in my calendar around how that works. And the team that I'm part of are also obviously a bunch of people who are also working global hours. So we try and be pretty respectful of people's time as well. So, for instance, I had an email this week from someone asking if I could be available for a call at midnight on Thursday. So I went back to them and said, okay, just quick heads up, this call will be at midnight for me. If you need me there, I can be there. Or is this actually something that you and I can discuss one-on-one at another time? And she came back immediately and said, oh, goodness, of course, I hadn't even thought about that. Yep, don't worry about it. If you can just document for me A, B, and C, we can manage it like that. So it tends to be that, we are respectful of the way all of our colleagues need to manage their time, their energy, and all of their other obligations outside of, doing what we do. I want to say 9 to 5, but, 12 to 12. So,
yes. So it's almost for you like just that little reminder that, by the way, my when you say 12, that is my midnight. Like, yes,
That's exactly
that's
right.
your lunchtime maybe, but that's not mine.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think it's particularly true for people who have global roles and who live, well, in Asia Pacific generally, and on the east coast of Australia, or even New Zealand for the folks who are there even more. Because when a lot of our global colleagues think global, they think Europe and the US. And so if they're accommodating those time zones, well, that's the world. You hear it all the time when they talk about summer. At the moment, everyone's about to go on summer holidays. I even had a colleague say to me, "What are you doing for summer?" I said, "Well, well, of course, that's Christmas time, and I'll be doing this, this, and this." I go, "Oh, what do you mean you take your summer holidays at Christmas?" And it's, well, we have we're at Christmas time, and that's how that works here. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And this is from a person who was a partner in a big global firm, and even he was saying, don't you take your summer holidays at the same time as everyone else? It's no, we wouldn't do that because it's not
doesn't
summer.
Quite work that way.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I find myself constantly catching my global colleagues and say, so just to translate, when you say summer, do you actually mean August? Because to be clear, they're not one and the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
Yes.
So then from there, what do you make the most important part of your day?
So I think that there are two parts of my day that I'm very aware of how I manage myself in the very first part of the day. And my energy is at its highest first thing in the morning. So that tends to be when I get done all of the hard things. If I need to have challenging discussions, if I need to make hard decisions about things, if there is something that I really don't want to do, I will make sure that I get it done probably before 11 o'clock in the morning, because I know myself well enough to know that the longer I leave it after that, the more my energy sort of depletes over the day, and the less inclined I am to do it. So, generally hard things get done, by 11 o'clock. The end of the day, whenever that is also a really important part of my day as well. And I finish every day actually by doing some meditation and some reading. And it doesn't matter what time my day finishes, I need to do that for me. And to me, that always feels like I'm sort of, gathering myself back together again at the end of the day, and pulling all of the threads of myself to, back together again. Thinking, and if the day has unraveled me a little bit, then the end of the day is when I kind of ravel myself back together again and sort of cocoon myself up, and then rest better, having done that.
So how long do you normally give for that sort of routine at the end of the day?
At least 15 or 20 minutes. So not a huge amount of time, but enough time for me to actually go, it's time to stop. It's time to turn off the big lights and just have a candle or, a dim bedside light. It's time to actually breathe. It's time to actually feel what I've been feeling for the day. And often my days I will run like on I've described it to friends and saying, I feel often as if my days like I'm running on a low, sometimes high, like background hum of adrenaline. And I'm aware of it all the time. And the end of the day is when I actually go, okay, thank you. You've done your work for today and you can be quiet now.
Right. Okay. No, that's really interesting. Really interesting. And so when did you come across that as your practice? Was there a catalyst for that?
Yeah, there was actually. So probably it would have been 18 years ago, 19 years ago, when I was a senior manager in the firm. And the firm sent me on a senior manager leadership development program. That it was at a beautiful facility in regional Victoria. And one of the practices that they introduced us to was daily meditation. And I must admit, I went through it, and being a deeply compliant girly swat, I thought, right, okay, I'll nail this, I'll do the meditation, then I'm done, move on to the next thing.
Wipe that off.
Exactly. So yes, did I meditate? Yes, I meditated. What's next? And they only held us in a quiet place of meditation for 3 minutes. But
Oh,
over the
wow.
course of
Okay.
this leadership development program, they did the 3 minutes a couple of times a day.
Yep.
And the leadership development program, from memory, was 3.5 days, something like that.
Yep.
But even by the end of that 3.5 days, I had started to notice that I looked forward to that practice,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
that I enjoyed the practice, that I was
Yep.
getting more out of the practice than I had
Mm-hmm.
anticipated that I would. And so, sort of made a commitment to myself. How often at the end of those sorts of programs you write on a post-it note, as a result of this thing, the thing that
I
I will
will.
change is,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Well, my I will was, I will commit to doing this for, I don't know, the next fortnight, something like that.
Yes.
But it was,
18 years later.
yeah, that's exactly right. I found it sufficiently helpful, healing, calming, centering, all of the things that my days often are not, that it still feels like a little gift that I give to myself at
Oh,
the
okay.
end of the
Yep.
day.
Yep.
And there are
It's
some
become your
days
precious.
when it's become my thing. And there are some days where, when I get towards the end of the day, I think, oh, I'm too tired, I don't have time for that. And then I'll, kind of slip between the covers and go, actually, no, now that I'm here, I feel like I've cheated myself of something. So I actually have to
Get
sit
up
up and
do.
honor the practice. Yeah, in some way. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
so that's become a little bit of my thing. Yes.
It's
and then I
always
feel like,
interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, and I always feel that by doing that, I'm then ready to sort of jump out of bed the next morning. When the alarm goes, it's right, okay, the day's on,
Okay.
because I've actually given myself the best opportunity to kind of recover overnight.
So does that mean also for your practice then that doesn't let your brain keep ticking over things all through the
That's
night and
right.
lets you get into your deep sleep? Okay. Yep.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a fire break, for want of a better way of
Yep.
describing it,
Okay.
between my
Yep.
day and then my
And then,
rest.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I know for some people, when they wake in the morning, that's a time of, reflection and daily intention setting and those sorts of things. I have tried to do that, but I find first thing in the morning, my brain is galloping. And once I'm up, I actually just want to start doing. Well, I've actually got the energy and the thoughts and all the things. And I actually find it quite difficult to take a moment at the beginning of the day. I just want to, yes, the alarm goes and I'm up and I'm out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas other people, the other way around.
Yeah,
Isn't it
exactly.
funny though? It does take a while to find what is your practice and what is your, and even sometimes where something doesn't hit immediately can still lead to being your thing. Some of those things aren't natural hits straight away, and some are obviously. Like I find for me, if I do yoga in the morning, and once again, and it's not long, like 10 minutes, but if I have that connection because I'm clearing my, like, not go, oh, it's 10 minutes, but I've got, no, I can't, suddenly your brain goes, oh, I should do all these other things. But if I'm actually in that calm state for that 10 minutes, I know my brain is in a much better space, as well as obviously my body then, even though my body protests quite a lot about doing yoga. But so what was was there anything in those sort of situations that was a big miss that you thought, I think this might work, and you go, no, that was just terrible?
Well, certainly, like as I said, I think things like mindfulness practice. I try to do that in the morning. I can't. The morning is when I need to exercise and or get to work.
Get going.
And I know that's exactly right. And even I know some people when they run, and I run 3 or 4 mornings a week. I know some people when they run, they find that calming and meditative. When I'm running in the morning, I don't. That's actually when I find myself talking to myself quite a bit, and I'm anticipating some of the discussions that I'm going to have in the day. That's right. Okay.
So you're doing rehearsal in that time, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Because they always say that's quite a powerful thing to do, like that verbal rehearsal of especially difficult conversations or anything like that.
It can be. Sometimes it's also a way of getting out of the way all the things that I want to say, but I know I won't.
So that's like the email. I write the email, but I don't send it.
That's exactly right.
So someone running beside you goes, oh my God, what's she?
and they may well. Exactly. That's right. If they hear me running along, and another thing.
And you find that really clears that, especially sometimes when you're just holding anger or frustration,
almost more than anger sometimes, where you might even be frustrated at the person. You're just frustrated about the situation in general, but like expressing that and actually letting it out, gives it something to then just, okay, I've had my with it and now it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely, I do, and I can feel myself sometimes, putting that angsty energy into myself as I run along, and running up and down hills and things like that, and it's very, push it out, and then I'll get to the end of a run, and it feels quite cathartic. Oh, I felt so much better after that, and and of course the other party never knows what they avoided.
Those memes that say, people don't understand how much I'm actually not saying and I'm being calm in this situation, whereas I could be this other person.
That's exactly, or at least they think you're being calm.
Yes, exactly. So that's really interesting, because then what's your other tips for, because you spend a lot of time obviously in situations where sometimes you have some power, some negotiation, some where you are almost just listening to a problem that cannot be fixed in whatever time frame your clients have in mind. How do you stay calm and centered in that when you are dealing with a client that has their own angst or their own frustrations or their own needs that in your heart of hearts can't possibly be met, but all you can do is either redirect or get them to an understanding place?
Yeah, so that is, I think, the work of a lifetime. And I would love to say I've got this magic formula and I nail it every single time. And sadly, that's not true.
So you're shockingly telling me no.
No, well, exactly. I don't get it right every time. I think it's a function of age as much as anything. I'm hopefully a little better at it now than I was when I started in professional services nearly 30 years ago. I do have a little mantra, and I've even got it written on my desk at home, and that says, calm is the cradle of power. And I try and bring myself back to that when I can feel myself getting a little adrenalized or a little aerated about something that's going on, or I can feel other people's anxiety, and again being very clear in my own mind about what of that I can absorb and what I can't, and that I need to be calm in myself in order to be able to best help and support the people that I am there to work with, whether it's peers and colleagues, whether it's other people in the firm, or as you say, whether it's with clients, and to be very clear with them about what I'm able to do and when I'm able to do it, to manage expectations in a way that is upfront and clear and transparent, but hopefully also really respectful to them as well. I think as a function of age as well, I've also got much better at owning up front what I don't know and what I can't help with. And I think earlier in my career, I was wanting to give the impression that, I can help with everything and we've got people who can do it all and everything is just going to be fabulous and you don't need to worry about a thing. And of course, sometimes, people can read right through that, and they can see when it's not entirely true, or you're fluffing a little bit with some of the detail around the edges. And I'm much better now at just saying, okay, thank you for sharing the issue with me. What the bit that I think I can help with is this bit from here to here, and this is how I think I might be able to help with that. Is that the sort of help that you would value with this particular problem right now? And this other piece that you mentioned, to be honest, that's actually not my area of expertise. However, I could probably go off and find something about that for you. How soon can I get back to you about that? Or is that actually a discussion you'd like to have with other people? And again, I find once I can be clear about that, you can see people relax as well, because I'm not over-representing anything. I'm there just to have a really honest conversation and to own my part of it. And kind of like what we were talking about at the start, to be clear about my own boundaries. I know this bit really well, and I'm pretty comfortable that we can have a useful discussion about this bit. But that other thing over there, haven't got a clue, but I know that I don't have a clue about it. That's a known unknown for me. But you know, we've got people who can help, or you know, maybe that's something that, you know, others can help you with, and I might be able to, you know, help point you in the direction of where that could be resolved. But yes, that is definitely just something that has come as a function of age and having been tripped up on pretending, you know, earlier in life. We go, yeah, sure, I'm an expert at whatever it is thing.
Because that sort of goes hand in hand, you know, with that feeling that you're an imposter a little bit as well, doesn't it? Like where you feel, you know, you either have to have the answer to absolutely everything, and I have to be able to, otherwise you aren't going to believe I can do the job for you in any way. Or, you know, do you feel I'm a timid little weak person that can't, you know, whereas showing your vulnerability is actually such a strength that you don't, when you're younger, you don't understand that, the strength in that.
No, I think that's right. And you're so keen to please, so keen to help, so keen to do the right thing, so keen to, you know, in our instance, maybe secure a contract, or, you know, do whatever it is that needs to be done, that you try and be all the things to all the people all the time.
Yes.
And you don't realize that no one can, and the effort that you spend doing that, you know, is well, it's insane, and people can see straight through it anyway. So the best thing that you can do is be, you know, completely upfront and honest about your own capability. With that said, I think for those of us who have a tendency towards imposter syndrome, and I'm definitely one of them, I don't know that it ever entirely leaves you.
No.
I think that sense of, you know, people will find me out, that I am actually utterly hopeless at this thing, and I've just managed to skate through so far, and no one has asked the question.
That would reveal, but one day, exactly, today's the day.
Today's the day, exactly. That's exactly right. Today's the day everyone will find out that I'm just a monumental fraud.
So that's really interesting, because especially in today's world, where, like for you in particular, where you're often not meeting your colleagues in the flesh, like at all, until suddenly, by the way, stand on this stage, as you said, and present this. You know, how do you go through that process? How do you come to terms with, you know, because we've talked before about, you know, presenting to people you don't know, obviously is still a little, you know, for those who aren't extroverts, is a little confronting. But for when you're an introvert and you're presenting to people that you know, sometimes that's even harder, because you go, they're going to ask that question, aren't they? Like, I'm going to be standing here and I'm going to point that slide up, and everyone's going to go, oh, she's not going there, is she?
That's exactly right. And these are people who know the chinks in your armor. And as you say, and they know what they think you should be a content expert in, or a subject matter expert in. And so, they can ask the really incisive, challenging, revealing question that proves to the world once and for all, you are absolutely hopeless.
The spotlight.
Yes. That's exactly right. So, whether it's to an external audience or an internal audience, I do get nervous, absolutely, and I prepare whenever I'm doing that. But it's very true that I actually get more nervous in preparing for an audience of my peers and colleagues than I do for an external audience. Again, I think one of the things that I have learned to do over time is, you know, again, sort of frame those discussions with peers and colleagues by saying, I'm sharing this with you because I've been asked to, because the context is A, B, and C. However, I know there will be content here that will be known by many of us in the room, and it's highly likely that some people here will know parts of this way, way, way better than I do. So if I am saying something and it sounds to you as if it is way off piste, please jump up and wave your arms around and tell me, because the conversation will be better for all of us to have the best knowledge and the best insight shared in the room. And I won't be precious about that. So let's make this a collaborative discussion, and I'll kick us off.
So how long did it take you to come to terms with that thinking? Like, and what was that? Watching other people, a mentor, or just a self-growth that you went through, or all the above?
Um, I think, it's probably a combination of all the above. I know that I respond really well to people presenting when they are just very honest about who they are and what they know. And I think probably like a lot of us, again, as you get a bit older and a bit crankier, your kind of BS detector becomes ever better refined. And and you can sit there and find yourself, rolling your eyes and oh yeah, that's not exactly what I understand about this particular topic or issue. And I, and having seen that, so having seen it done badly, just making the determination, I don't want to be that person, and I don't want people to think of me the way I'm currently thinking about them. So if there is a way that I can short circuit that, then I'll go there. And then seeing some of my colleagues who do it very, very well as well, and are very open and humble and curious. And again, the older I get, the more that I see the people that I admire the most are people who are very humble about what they know, and are people who are extremely curious about the world and are always asking questions themselves. And literally, even if they are the person in the room who's got a Nobel Prize, they are still the person who is asking, and wanting to share knowledge, and create opportunities for others to learn. And I don't do it anywhere near as well as some really brilliant people do. But I guess I've looked at that enough to think, wow, that's a style I really admire. And I actually think it gets a much better outcome for everyone in the room than the person who is Edward expert on that particular thing on that particular
day. So how do you deal with let's say alpha personalities that are coming at you? Like, how do you diffuse? How do you because obviously in your career you would have seen a very different workplace evolve, hopefully from very much a male of this is how it is done to a much more collaborative type workplace. Like, so how did that come faster than you were expecting? Because sometimes those things are so, the ball rolls so slowly, and then suddenly, oh, this has changed, and to where it is now, where it's much more collaborative. And do you still find that dealing with big alpha type personalities as confronting? The same personality, they're just disguised in different ways?
Look, that's a great question, I guess, and there are a bunch of different parts to it. And I'll probably start by saying you're absolutely right. I have lived, observed, experienced a massive change in workplace culture between now and when I first started in professional services, which was literally last century. And it just a huge change in what's expected and what's tolerated, and fortunately what's not tolerated in workplaces as well. And as you say, where I work, but also with a lot of my clients, I am dealing with a lot of alpha personalities. Earlier in my career, there was a sense that I think, particularly as a younger female professional services provider, you just had to suck it up. And if people were rude, obnoxious, bullying, demanding, whatever it was, that you just needed to suck it up. And there were certainly nights that I would go home and cry because of what I had experienced during the day. But I think that also made me angry, and it made me determined that I was not going to get knocked out of a career that I wanted to have by virtue of some bad behaviour, and also that when I became, a manager or a leader myself, I was never going to replicate the behavior that I had experienced, because I felt how destructive it was for me, and I saw how destructive it was for other people around me. And it just felt to me that it was monstrously unfair and inequitable that there was a cohort of people who felt they could throw their power around, and use their power for ill intent, and not for good. And it really used to rile me. It still riles me when I see it, but fortunately there is a lot less of it, and I'm a little better equipped to deal with it these days as well. With that said, we still have a lot of forceful personalities, both within the and in the market.
And there's nothing wrong with a forceful personality.
No, there is absolutely not. There is absolutely not. And so for me, for a lot of the people that I work with, absolutely one of my responsibilities in this role is to actually work closely with our leaders and find out what their own superpower is. And I find a lot of people, if they are being a little bit destructive with their alphaness, it's often that they feel unvalued, unloved, unappreciated, and that their alphaness actually isn't able to be directed at something that is valued by them and that is valued by other stakeholders as well. So I think part of the thing that I really try and do is to actually understand, why is that behavior occurring? Why does this person, keep giving voice to A, B, and C? And how can I work with them to really understand what it is that they want to do, and how can I help create a platform for that, and create an environment in which they can be successful. Of course, that doesn't always work either, and there are in any population, there will be outliers in the population where the personality still just doesn't, or the behaviours don't fit within the acceptable tolerances of the organisation. At which point you have a whole bunch of completely different conversations. But I guess my experience broadly is when people are being very alpha-ish, or if there's a little bit of acting out, sometimes it's because someone's genuinely feeling underloved, underappreciated, and as if they have this amazing thing that they would like to contribute, but they don't know how and they don't know where, and no one has
they don't have the language or
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so my first instinct generally is to try and think, okay, how do we work with this? And what's the gift that you want to bring to the table?
And that's often what loudness. It's really important to be, because straight away you're going like that rather than leaning in and genuinely listening. And it's often 2 or 3 words, as like that are the key words to what they're actually trying to say. But because they're blasting a volume at you or at other people, everyone else can miss that. That what's the compassionate thing they're actually trying to say or do or bring to this table.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or what is the hurt right now that they are giving vent to, albeit in entirely the wrong way and in entirely the wrong forum, which is a discussion we can have separately, nonetheless.
So that's where it's important for you to. That's not the 2:00 meeting.
That's exactly right.
that's the before 11.
That's exactly right. Or sometimes it's the after I've had a ride on my horse meeting, where I've actually had a chance to de-stress myself and go, right, okay, I've actually had a chance to take care of myself a little bit now, and I'm up for having that other conversation. I can deal with your thing now. That's exactly right. I've just wrestled a horse. I can deal with your thing.
So here's a question for you, and this is what the always the yin and yang. Like I know for me and for quite a few people, like the word resilience, like it is so precious in some ways and so destructive in other ways. What's its relationship with you?
I would say mixed. Would say mixed. And I think it's very positive if I think about it in terms of grit relative to a particular a particular thing that you're wanting to do, a particular goal you're wanting to achieve, whatever that might be. I also think it can be destructive if we use it with people where we are expecting them to keep turning up in a situation that is ultimately not it's not in their self-interest to keep turning up in. And if we use it as some sort of test to see how far people can push themselves before they break.
Yes. Whereas there's no skill of improvement. There's just that grind.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So when I'm thinking about it for myself, I actually prefer the word grit, and that's something that I think about. Do I need to be gritty here? Yeah.
Does grit also mean it's a shorter, more intense thing that you're doing the grit for, rather than, sometimes resilience is, I've just got to drag myself out of bed today and get through the whole thing, rather than, well, actually, if I focus on the thing that's hurting me and get that done. Is that how it works for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right. And I think, and sort of, if I've made that a slightly bigger idea, which I think is exactly how I think about it, I just haven't thought about it that way before. It's very for me, I'm gritty around a particular task orientated, or even things that are very time bound, rather than I must be gritty forever about everything. I don't think that's true, and I couldn't be. Yes.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking of it. Actually, it gives that. This is my problem. Dig in here and make a difference. Don't just dig. Whereas resilience is holding firm and sometimes not making a change of either improvement or the other way around. So I love that word. Love it when you think of it like that. Cool. Now let's. There's an important thing that must be said, and that is. Is this the best person for the job? I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that phrase and why that has such a resonance for what your current role is.
Yeah, so that phrase was said to me by my darling daughter when she heard that I had been offered the global role by the firm, and she sort of looked at me quizzically and said, "Wow, Mum, no, that's a really big job." And I was, "Yes, darling, yep, yeah, it certainly
waiting for the praise to come in."
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And she was, "Are you the best person for the job? Like, are you really the best they've got for this?"
Isn't it always wonderful to have a tribe around you that just wants only the best for you?
Absolutely, and believes so strongly.
Yes, exactly. Right down to the fundamental core.
That's exactly right. So this is obviously someone who has seen me at my worst in my PJs, in my own boots, scuffing around the house, humming mindlessly to myself, and I think and it was just really. Don't they have any other people?
Are you sure this is what the firm wants to do?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So yes, one of those beautiful moments of, on the one hand, being given a golden opportunity by the firm to take on this amazing role, and on the other, and in the same moment, being kept so grounded by those nearest and dearest.
It's a genuine skill that kids have for their parents genuinely. So when you were in your teens, what did you where did you think your life was going to go?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think I had lots of different ideas as to where I thought my life would go, but I didn't quite know how I was going to get there. I had notions of myself as being a teacher, because I've always and still think that teaching is such an important vocation, and that it is such a transformative gift to to teach others and to and inspire and encourage and allow people to discover different versions of themselves through what they learn. And so I was really inspired by the idea of teaching, but I didn't know that I saw myself necessarily just teaching, certainly not in the school environments that I had experienced.
Yep.
I knew that I wanted to see the world. I knew that I wanted to do something that had meaning and impact and purpose beyond my own life. When you shared with me that you might ask me this question, I was actually thinking about who were my role models when when I was a young girl and a younger woman. The early role models that I remember were in no particular order. Jana Wendt, the journalist. I thought she was fabulous. Scarlett O'Hara, just because there was a woman who would not say die, even in the middle of the American Civil War, and Miss Piggy, just because there was a pig with gumption. I was drawn to women characters who were not, I guess, defined by any particular stereotype about necessarily what it meant to be female or to live a particular female-esque life. I aspired to be someone who was self-directed and achieve interesting things in the world, and I knew that I wanted to go out in the world and make a difference. I started writing letters to my local member and even the Prime Minister when I was about 9 or 10, when I had very strong on all sorts of matters that I felt needed the immediate attention of our elected officials. And to their credit, or their officers' credit, I got responses to quite a few of the things which I still have. So it was. And I remember feeling very strongly, even when I was, 9, 10, 11, that if you were serious about making a difference in the world, you actually have to show up and get involved in things, and you can't just stand on the sidelines and throw rocks. And that the way to make a difference is to just jump in. And I guess I've been really lucky. I never saw for myself a career in professional services. That was not something that I ever planned. That was something that I literally sort of fell into in my last year of university, having no idea what I was getting myself into. And even then thinking, I'll just do this for a couple of years and then I'll go and do some teaching and I'll go and do a whole range of other things. And I said, and here I am, whatever it is, 26, 27, 28 years later, still thinking, I'll just do this next.
I'll just do one more year.
I'll just do one more thing. That's exactly right. And I guess I found through the career that I've been really lucky to have had so far, that there has just been so many big and complex and interesting projects that I've had the chance to be part of, and so many amazing people around the world that I've had the chance to meet. So so the life that I am living in some respects is not the life that I thought I would have, because I didn't know that this life even existed. But it has certainly fed my thirst for learning and for doing and for traveling and for meeting really cool people. And for me the big thing is the constant learning. I kind of feel that in my or in the work that I'm able to do, I sort of I live an MBA every week. Like I'm doing so much learning as part of just what I get paid to do.
Yeah. And so how were you so in touch and understanding, and maybe you weren't, of what are your core values from such a young age?
Yeah, that's another great question. I don't know that I had a strong sense of all my core values at a young age, but I had a really strong sense of the importance of service. And I think that came as a result of growing up in a family where my dad was a RAF officer and my mum was and still is a nurse. And so notions of service and community and being part of creating a greater good were very much part of the way my family lived, and obviously the work that Dad in particular was doing. From a very young age, I was aware that Dad's work was important, not just to our family, but it was work that was related to, nationally significant matters. And it was work that he was proud of. And I remember, going on RAF bases at a very young age and being proud of the fact that Dad was part of this community and that my family was part of this community, and that so much of what we experienced as a family was in a notion of service. So I think that was, without me even meaning to, it was, to take it on. It was just something that was so much part of my environment that I just sort of, absorbed it, that a life well lived is a life that involves service. And so I think that was something that mattered to me. Other values that I have around, integrity is something that really matters for me a lot. I think that's probably something that I didn't have a strong sense of until later on in my life. And I think, like a lot of core values, you realise that matters to you when you deal with other people and that value is somehow breached. And so it's sort of almost in the breach of it that you think, that really bit. And then, why did that bite?
It is quite interesting. And it's, those people that are, basically eating their own values, it makes it so hard. Like you can do it for a while, but, if necessity, takes a turn, but at the end of the day, that is the thing that will burn you out and just spit you out as well, because you just can't find, that your self-worth gets tied to everything, and it just it's so crippling when you see something going like that. I always feel sorry for those the whistleblowers or things like that in an organization that that then get totally spat out through society in that way, or actually just trying to find what their true values are and what sometimes our values should be.
That's exactly right, and taking a stand on something and being effectively, punished, and sometimes deeply punished for that. That always sits uncomfortably with me.
Yes, totally. So what advice? And I know obviously you would have given this to your daughter, but which she would have held on every word, but our own spouse secluded from that, because we know kids never listen, to anything their parents say. What would you say to someone who's at uni or at school or at first getting into the workplace? Things that as you say, like, wisdom is a wonderful thing, and having lived this career that you've lived, how would you, looking back, give that advice of someone starting out?
I guess that there are a few different things that I might suggest. One would be for people to pursue their passion. Where there is an opportunity to do that. And it doesn't mean that you have to be passionate about every single thing that you do every single moment of the day. But I guess something that you care deeply about, and something that satisfies your curiosity. And certainly when people are at uni or in the early stages of their career, I know there can be a huge amount of pressure to pursue careers that seem to have, if you like, make a lot of financial or economic sense. But again, I guess the older I've got, the more I've felt, that we're only here for a short time, and so doing something that matters and that in some way feeds your soul is so important. And to find what that is, or to find the nuggets of those things in the work that you do. And I know there have been certainly times that I've had in my career where, it hasn't all been sunshine and roses, but sort of my challenge to myself has been, can I find some goodness here for me now?
Yep.
Is there an opportunity for me to learn something from this that I might not have the opportunity to learn from otherwise, or meet people that I might not have the opportunity to meet otherwise? And when it has stopped feeding me, to know that, you know, it's time to actually step out and do something else. So I think possibly a related piece of advice there would be trust your gut. So if you can do something that you're passionate about, regardless of whether or not that's the big thing or it's just finding nuggets of soul food in there, that's good either way. But also to trust your gut and to know when it's time to let go of something as well. I think sometimes in the course of careers, people get afraid to let go of things. They can be afraid to let go of economic security or role or title or prestige, and they hold on to it for grim death. One of the things that I have seen, and you know, is that when you do that, there can actually end up being a little bit of bitterness in the holding on, a little bit of cynicism in the holding on. And you need to let go of things before that happens, and give someone else the gift of doing that thing. And it's time for you then to move on, and something else will be there, and to trust that as well. And I think there, you know, and there's also just the in terms of advice, knowing, if you like, knowing what it is you are after in terms of experiences for yourself, without necessarily having all of your hopes or ambitions tied to a particular role or a particular title or a particular career trajectory. You know, I have found myself able to, you know, being offered to do some roles that I didn't even know existed when I started out in my career. And if I had pursued a very linear, you know, sort of career trajectory, I probably wouldn't have had a lot of the experiences that I've had along the way. So sometimes it's saying yes to the thing that you have never heard of before, that seems to have come out of left field. And my experience has been that when I have been able to say yes to things, that yes then will open up a whole lot of other doors that would never have been open to me. And in fact, I would never have known were even there to be opened if I hadn't taken sort of the first step, you know, off the beaten track, so to speak. So it's you know, being open to doing things that are outside of, if you like, what the accepted trajectory might be. And treating your career a bit like an adventure.
So, last question.
Yeah.
How do you balance, and this is a girl who likes her data, how do you balance data gathering with gut feeling?
Gosh, another great question. You're right. I love data, and I guess when I work in an environment and with clients who also want to know that everything that we do is backed up with data. That's right.
Yes,
that's exactly right. So I am. The older I get, the better I'm getting at trusting my gut instincts. But that doesn't negate the fact that you know, clearly from a professional perspective, I can't just say, I've got a hunch that this business case is wrong. I actually need to be able to say, and I'd like to see the following data sets, please. So, and even then, I do it possibly badly, but I try and manage for the cognitive biases that I will necessarily take to data sets because of the gut reaction or the instincts that I will have to things. I said I will always have a preference for looking at data. But yes, I said, the older I get, the better I'm getting at listening to my gut instinct and going, there's probably something there. I should take note of that. I don't know that I can do anything with it in this moment now, but that suggests to me that there are some other questions that I need to ask, or other things that, you know, that I need to know before I commit to a position on that.
Oh, yes.
As you know. And I've come flying off a horse because I felt I should ride this horse on this day, regardless of the fact that it was stormy. And that's exactly right. And it was, and my sense of should overrode a gut instinct that was, you idiot, don't get on.
It's funny because a lot of the everyone thought was going to go the other way, but a lot of that research of the more intellectual you get and the more educated you get, your actually cognitive biases get stronger and stronger, rather than the other way around. You actually start to, and that they were looking at that as you said, the cognitive biases, which is a really strong thing, and a strong thing of reminding yourself of actually trying to look at your own cognitive biases, because you sort of but once you grow from a spot, those cognitive biases are no longer in that same spot over there. You've got to be aware that they've actually shifted here, and adjust both ways. But yeah, it was quite interesting, the studies that have come out now around cognitive biases, and what we think of as the better educated should be less cognitive bias, and actually it can become much stronger.
Absolutely, particularly if those biases have served you well historically.
Yes, exactly.
They're really neat mental shortcuts, and they have the potential to save you shed loads of time. Shame if they're wildly wrong.
We won't mention those times where we're wildly wrong, obviously, because that's, once again, that's that question that will come up. Oh my God, she just doesn't know her stuff at all. Like, how did she get to this wrong?
That's exactly right. Thought she was hopeless. She truly is.
Oh, this has been absolutely sensational. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time.
Oh, well, always. And I've really, really enjoyed the chat. And as always, when I'm talking with you, it helps me, clarify some of my own thinking, about things as well. Like, I go, oh, I didn't know I thought that. There you
go. Yeah, I find that with you. And also, as we've talked before, like when you journal or you write a little blog to yourself, it actually gives the brain that time to go, hang on, this is the stuff. And I usually, just write it onto the page and just let it all there. And then I suddenly go, actually, if I pick these 3 pieces out, they have nothing to do with what I thought it was. And it's actually the fundamental direction I thought I actually should be going, which, sometimes a little off. So I always love those sort of rambling discussions, shall we say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those moments where you surprise yourself and go, hey, I thought that. Who knew?
That's maybe I should change it to, I thought that. Who knew? That should be the Oh, Katherine, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My great pleasure, Ben. So good to see you.